Taking another look at the Ford Ranger 7.5-inch axle and the process of narrowing it. Since the earlier video, I did find the fill plug, which is right there. I have obtained a second short side axle from eBay. This axle right here, which looks pretty good. The bearing surface on it looks very good. And have proceeded to make some measurements and decided where I'm going to cut the tube here. Now, something that occurred to me in this process, the distance from wheel flange to wheel flange is not going to change with changing the width of the axle housing. Both axles bear against the cross pin inside of here, and that flange to flange length is therefore fixed. But what is at stake is this gap here. If I cut off too much of the tube, this gap is going to be bigger, and vice versa. So I made a template. Kind of has the shape of the axle flange there, and I can put this up against the flange, and I can kind of eyeball what that gap looks like on one side. And then moving to the other side, this gap is bigger, and I can see that here. Also, measuring from the back surface of the brake flange to the back surface of the wheel flange, I measured 2 3/8 on the driver's side, but 2 9/32 on the passenger side, a difference of almost 1/8 inch. And the axle shafts themselves, I found, was not exactly 3-inch different between the long side and the short side. I had both axles here, the long and short axle. Of course, the long axle is here this moment, but lying these two side by side, the difference in length by my measurement was 2.960, not a full 3 inches. So what I seek to achieve here, I want to shorten this tube such that I'm not only running the short side axle on both sides, but I want to even up this gap from one side to the other. So I'm not going to take a full 3 inches out. Looking at this graphically, my figuring is the difference in the distance from the brake flanges to the wheel flanges is here. The difference in the axle length is here. This is a tad over 1/8 inch total. So instead of taking 3 inches out, I'm only going to take 2 7/8 out. And what I expect to happen is, with the 3 inches removed and the short side axle installed, this gap here won't be so great. Now, some other measurements that I made from this surface to the brake surface, 18 5/8. On the other side, 15 5/8. So that's exactly 3 inches different. So I'm certainly tempted to make that even. And it's always easy to cut it again versus taking off too much the first time. Also wanted to mention there's a bulge in this tube here, roughly 5 inches long on this side, but it's 8 inches long on this side. That's where I'm going to take my 2 7/8 out. People say you can drill out this plug, pull the tube out, cut your 3 inches off of the tube and push it back in, but with this bulge here, this greater diameter here, I question if that's possible. So once I'm happy with this video, I will drive to the rental store and rent a tube cutter, and the next video should show the axle with this piece removed. I would welcome any input, help, or commentary on this. Thanks, and be sure and watch my other videos.